Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. This time we're going to be looking at a history that's super important to understanding the U.S., but it's often overlooked. Uh, you wanted to explore the history of Latinos and Mexicans in America. We're diving into excerpts from The History of Latinos and Mexicans in the United States, A Journey of Resistance and Reclamation. And get ready because this deep dive uncovers a really powerful story of resilience and cultural survival, and just an ongoing fight for recognition.
Yeah, it makes you rethink what you thought you knew.
It totally does. This isn't just like dates and names you know. It's about understanding how connected Mexican and American history really is. Like right off the bat, the source starts by highlighting how much of what we think of as the U.S. today was actually Mexican territory before the Mexican-American War.
That's right. It's important to remember that Texas, California, Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, Utah, and even parts of Colorado and Wyoming were all part of Mexico. This war, which was fueled by the idea of manifest destiny, really reshaped the map and the demographics of the United States.
Okay, so for our listener, can you break down manifest destiny a little bit? What does that even mean? And how did it lead to war?
Well, manifest destiny was this belief that the U.S. was destined to expand across North America. Some even said it was like divinely ordained. It basically justified westward expansion no matter who was already living there. And, that obviously led to conflict with Mexico.
Wow, more than half of Mexico's territory was lost. I can't imagine the impact that had.
Yeah, the impact was devastating. And the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, which was supposed to protect the rights of Mexicans living in those territories, well, it largely failed to do so. For example, the treaty promised citizenship and land rights. But a lot of Mexican landowners found that their titles were challenged in U.S. courts. And this resulted in a lot of land loss and displacement, breaking the promises made in the treaty.
So the U.S. basically took the land and didn't honor the agreement. It sounds like a recipe for resentment and cultural clash.
Exactly. And this set the stage for decades of struggle and resistance. The U.S. implemented strategies to solidify control, often through laws that favored white settlers. This included promoting Anglo-Saxon culture over Mexican traditions and language. Imagine the pressure to assimilate, to give up your heritage, and the determination it took to resist that pressure.
It's amazing how, despite those efforts, Mexican culture survived. The source really highlights that resilience.
Absolutely. Despite facing all these obstacles, the Mexican people held on to their identity. They continued to speak Spanish, celebrate their traditions, and pass their cultural heritage down. It was a subtle but powerful form of resistance. You could even think of it as a quiet defiance that kept the flame of their heritage burning bright.
It's almost like planting seeds of resistance that would grow later.
I like that. That's a great way to put it. These acts of cultural preservation really laid the groundwork for the resurgence we see in the Latino community today, which brings us to what the source calls the rebirth of the Latino community.
Yes, it's so inspiring to see the Latino community's modern-day resurgence in education, political participation, and cultural influence. It feels like they're claiming their rightful place in American society.
Absolutely. The source has a bunch of data to back this up. Like, did you know that the Latino population is projected to be the largest demographic group in the U.S. by 2050? This has massive implications for the country's demographics, economics, and even politics.
That's incredible. And it's not just numbers. It's the vibrant contributions to American culture. The music, the art, the food. You just can't separate those things from the Latino experience.
You're so right. Those contributions are part of what it means to be American. It's part of the fabric of the nation. But as the source points out, this growth and influence hasn't been met with universal acceptance.
Right. It talks about a fear of change surrounding the growing Latino community.
This fear often stems from anxieties about demographic shifts and challenges to existing power structures and potential changes in the U.S.'s cultural landscape.
Yeah, it's interesting how the source connects this fear to the whole immigration debate. It goes beyond like the legal arguments.
Yeah.
And really looks at those underlying power dynamics and anxieties about a changing America.
Yeah, and it's really insightful how the source highlights the economic and political motivations behind some of the resistance to immigration reform. Like, certain industries benefit from undocumented labor, and some politicians use immigration as a wedge issue to divide voters and gain power. It's kind of cynical, but it's a reality the source doesn't shy away from.
It's almost like there's this fear that if undocumented immigrants get legal status, the power dynamics will shift. They'll have more rights, more influence, and that prospect seems unsettling to some.
Exactly. That's a really key point that the source makes, this fear of a shifting political landscape. It really plays a huge role in shaping the immigration debate, and it often overshadows the human impact and the economic realities of immigration.
But despite this fear and resistance, the Latino community isn't backing down. There's this powerful quote in the source that really got to me. "We don't want charity, we want justice. We're not asking for permission. We're demanding respect. We're not the future of the United States. We are its present."
Wow. That quote is perfect. It really sums up the feeling of this whole historical journey. It highlights this demand for recognition, not as newcomers or outsiders, but as members of the nation. Remember, this is a community whose roots in the U.S. go back centuries. They helped build this country, contributed to its culture, and they fought for their rights every step of the way.
And it's clear from the source that the fight for equality and justice isn't over. This journey of resistance and reclamation, as the book calls it, continues.
Oh, absolutely. The source ends with a strong message. The resistance is nowhere near over. It's fueled by this deep sense of history, a strong cultural identity, and just a total determination to have their voices heard.
It's been really fascinating to see how this deep dive has gone way beyond just like a historical account. It's about understanding identity, belonging, and power dynamics in the United States.
I agree. It really challenges us to look deeper and to deal with some uncomfortable truths about our past and how it impacts us today.
And it makes it clear that the Latino community isn't just one thing. It's a diverse and dynamic group with a rich history and a bright future.
Yeah, for sure. And understanding their journey is a big part of understanding the United States as a whole. It's about recognizing their contributions, their struggles, and the fight for a more inclusive and equitable society.
This deep dive has been eye-opening. I feel like I've learned so much about this part of American history. What was the most impactful takeaway for you from the source?
That's a good question. I think for me, it's the resilience of the Latino community, in the face of all that adversity. Despite the attempts to erase their culture and silence them, they've persevered, they've thrived, and become a force in shaping the nation. It's really amazing.
I agree. That resilience is super inspiring. It makes me wonder about the future. What happens as their influence keeps growing?
That's the question the source leaves us with. It challenges us to think about what kind of country we're becoming. As demographics shift, cultural boundaries change, and new voices rise up.
Yeah, it really makes you think. What will the U.S. look like as the Latino community continues to grow and have more influence?
It's a big question, and it's not just about the numbers. It's about the ongoing fight for representation and equality, and what it even means to be American.
Right. So as we wrap up our deep dive, what does all of this mean for our listener? Even if they aren't Latino or Mexican themselves, why should they care about this history?
Well, this history is American history. It's about understanding the forces that have shaped this country, the struggles for power and inclusion, and how we can create a more just and equitable society for everyone.
Yeah. It's about recognizing that American identity isn't just one thing. It's constantly changing, and it's shaped by the experiences and contributions of all Americans.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it reminds us that history isn't just about the past. It's about the present and the future. The choices we make today are based on what happened yesterday, and those choices will shape the world tomorrow.
I think this deep dive has really been a journey of discovery, and I hope it's made you want to learn more.
Yeah, there's still so much to explore. I encourage you to find more resources, talk to people, and keep questioning your own perspectives.
If this deep dive has resonated with you, we've got tons of resources linked in the show notes, books, articles, documentaries. There's so much information out there just waiting to be discovered.
Yeah, definitely check it out. Learning about the history of Latinos and Mexicans in the U.S. isn't just about their story. It's about our story as Americans.
Well said. That brings us to the end of this deep dive. A huge thanks to you for joining us on this journey.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll see you on the next deep dive.